Hey, hello, and welcome to Michael's Minty Music. Today we review Duran Duran's self-titled 1993 album, usually called the Wedding Album based off of its cover, in order to distinguish it from their other self-titled album, also called Duran Duran, which released in 1981. It's decent, but it's not really that good. This is the track listing, and these are the tracks I added to my playlist, 5 out of the 13, just over a third. This album is decent, but it's not really that great. Duran Duran didn't do too well in the 90s, and this is probably one of their better albums from this period, because it actually has some songs which might be described as good. But a bunch of the songs here are worse than not good. They're just boring. I don't remember what half of these songs sound like, and I re-listened to this album a day ago. So the songs that you do remember are pretty good, though. So the album as a whole is alright. And the songs that are good are properly scattered around the album so to avoid sort of being really bored. So it ends up being sort of okay. The main problem is lack of consistent musical direction. There's a lot of stuff here that's potentially interesting, but they don't devote enough thought to it to be really good. Especially stuff off of the 5 songs I picked out here could really be made into a good album if they really dedicated themselves, but they did not on this one. This one is a hodgepodge of a variety of different sounds. So some of the songs here are good, but most are not. The only single off of this album was Ordinary World, which was used for a video game later called The Evil Within 2, I believe. It's a cover. The cover version is a lot better that's used in the video game. I don't really like the original, but the video game cover is actually good. So if you're going to listen to that song, do that one instead. And then my favorite song here is definitely Drowning Man. It's the most old-style Duran Duran, and it's still pretty clean, which some of the songs on here are not. Well produced. I really wish they'd used this sort of style as a base for the whole album, but they didn't. An album full of songs like this probably wouldn't have sold well in 1993, but I would have liked it, and I think it would have been a better album overall. I rank this album 9th out of Duran Duran's 15 albums. It's in the lower middle. It's certainly not the worst album Duran Duran made, but its lack of consistency means it falls behind albums that aren't that much better than it. It occupies a spot in the middle of a sort of series of albums which were all just sort of decent, not spectacular, but had some okay songs on it. Really, this one only loses out to their previous album Liberty due to the lack of a consistent album style, which Liberty does have. And then, obviously, this album doesn't take my top spot from 1993. That goes with Billy Joel's The River of Dreams, which is real great and has very few not good songs on it. So it doesn't really even come close here. The River of Dreams is a far superior album. Next up is Prank's brand new album releasing February 17th. It's called Trustfall. I'm pretty excited to hear new music from her. We haven't heard anything from her since 2019. So I'm interested to see if this album is any good or not. And it's also the first album I've heard from this year. It's only February, but the first album is always an interesting time. So stay tuned for that. And as always, stay minty.